So our card tonight is number 108, Emptiness, Orion Light. It's a future time stream card. And someone commented on one of my pick a card posts, where you go pick number 1, 2, or 3, the other day that she had chosen, I think it was card number 1, which was telling her to open up for contact from her cosmic guides. And she was very frustrated. Hey, Jenna. She was very frustrated because she had tried everything that she could think of to communicate with her guides and to get communication, and nothing worked. And she felt very depressed. And Marianne, you're funny. She felt very depressed because she was seeing like how everybody else was talking about, how they were having experiences with their guides and angels, and they were getting all these messages, and she wasn't getting any guidance. She wasn't hearing anything. She was getting no communication. And that happens because there's this expectation that a lot of people have that we're going to either hear someone talking to you, or you're going to see a being standing in front of you, like appearing in front of you. You're going to see this with your eyes, you're going to hear it with your ears. And that's mostly not how it works. Mostly not. Some people have that, but very rarely. So humans are the only ones who exist in and communicate in the third dimension. So using the 5 senses, right? Speech, language, sight, all of that stuff are 3D things. Those are human 3D things. And our guides, our spirits, our cosmic beings, God, angels, all of them, they exist in higher vibrational planes where communication happens in a different way. We don't have the same one-to-one language that we humans have with each other. Even, think about when you're communicating with animals. We speak to animals with words and language. They communicate back with body language, with, barking or whining, with showing their teeth, with the way they hold their head, their ears or their tail, or sometimes I call it the scrub brush when their scruff comes up. They communicate with body language. So we have practice communicating in nonverbal ways, because when animals communicate with us like that, when dogs communicate with us like that, if there are dogs and we know them, we learn the communication. So it's the same thing with communicating with non-physical beings. We're just having to learn how to communicate differently. So you have your 5 physical senses, right? Taste, touch, sound, sight, smell. And then you have 6 clairs. So clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, clairalience. So those are your 5 physical senses and your 6 inner senses. So the one that's extra in there is claircognizance. So clair means clear, and then the other half of the word is what is clear. So clairvoyance is clear vision, clairaudience is clear hearing. That means with your inner senses, right? You have clear vision with your inner sense, clear hearing with your inner sense. Clairsentience is clear feeling, so you have a feeling sense. Clairgustance is clear tasting, so if you taste something that's not there. Clairalience is clear smelling, so if you smell something that's not there physically. Claircognizance is the one that we don't have a physical sense to go with, and that is clear knowing. So you just know something. You just have a thought that comes in that's not really your thought. It just pops in. But you also, so all of those ways you receive communication, okay? But you also have synchronicity, which is meaningful coincidence. And you have signs and symbols. Those are all communication. And that's how you get communication from the non-physical world. So from your guides, from spirit, from your higher self. And there are people who can see and hear spirits, but they are very rare. There are more people who can see them in their mind's eye or hear them in their inner ear, so clairvoyance or clairaudience. But it's because those are the clair senses that they are using to receive information. And even those people they're not as common, because the other clair senses also receive information, but they're not as obvious. So when you're thinking all the time, right? You have thoughts in your head all the time. But when you have a claircognizant thought that pops in that's not really your thought, it doesn't appear to be different. Like you don't get a signal that, oh, this is a different thought than my thoughts, right? It just goes into the flow of thoughts that you're having. So you have to figure out how to tune into that, right? When you're having a like let's say you're talking to a friend and you suddenly have a pain in your knee and you don't have any knee problem, that can be clairsentient communication that you're getting. That can be a message, that can be information. But you just go, oh, my knee hurts for some weird reason, and we don't know that's communication. So since things don't look like or sound like human 3D communication, we miss the message a lot. So an example for me is, and this is a weird thing, I get a bodily feeling of fear or panic or anxiety when a spirit is around me. And I was reminded of this a couple of nights ago, that that's just my body's response to spirit energy being near me. So this has happened 4 times that I can think of. 3 times in my house in Tennessee, and then once the other night. The first 2 times in my house in Tennessee, it happened to me randomly. I didn't know what was happening. I just got this panic feeling for no reason. Like there was nothing going on. One time I was laying in bed reading a book. Steve was asleep next to me, and this wave of panic came over me. And I already was feeling like I had spirits in my house. I hadn't lived in this house very long. I ended up calling somebody to come cleanse the house. This was several years ago. And then it happened to me again in that house when I was like doing a meditation. So I was laying there on the floor listening to a meditation in my headphones, and I had my arms outstretched like this. I was laying on the floor, and all of a sudden I got this like fear feeling, like somebody was next to me and I had to open my eyes and look. And of course no one was there. But that was like spirit energy, and that's how my body reacts to it. A few nights ago, I sit here, like there's a window right here, and it's dark out. And every now and then, I just get a flicker of movement outside. Most of the time, I don't think anything of it, like just my eyes playing tricks on me and whatever, bugs and whatever. But the other night, I got this wave of fear from it, and I just remembered like, oh, okay, this is just my body's way of reacting to spirit energy. So that's communication, just that wave of fear. And when I had that realization, it went away in like 30 seconds instead of lingering for a long time going, what is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? So that's communication. And that's what I mean by we have to really figure out how they're communicating and sending us messages, because it's not going to come through you hearing a sentence in your head, most likely. You're not going to hear someone speaking to you, most likely. It comes in different ways, okay? A lot of times there's no words, there's no vision. It's just a feeling. It's a clairsentient feeling, or it's a claircognizant knowing. So that's why we do things like the body scans, like we did at the beginning, so that you can tune into the messages that are coming in through your clairsentient sense, your clear feeling sense, because that's a very common sense, especially for people who are empaths, right? You soak in all kinds of energy and information from other people, and you feel it in your body. That's information. Now, whether you need to be absorbing that or not is a different story, but you feel it in your body. Your body is what responds to that, and then your emotions respond to it when they make a story out of it, right? So that's information. So that's why we work on things like body scans. And also, we talk a lot in here or in our classes about finding the way your intuition communicates through your body. Because I say that your intuition, you have a tell. So mine's in my solar plexus. When I am on the right track, when I get the message, when if I'm giving a reading and I suddenly start talking about the right thing, I get a feeling in my solar plexus and I go, oh, okay, I'm on the right track. I got it. Okay, so we work on that stuff because your body is like a very sensitive antenna, and it picks up so much stuff and communicates it to you through sensation. There's a lot of communication in sensation, and it comes from all different places. It comes from the spirit world. It comes from your higher self. It comes from your intuition. It can come from your cosmic guides. It can come from your animal guides, right? So you have to find the way that spirits are trying to communicate with you in their way. And then also in the way that they can influence your 3D reality. So, one of the things that happens in spirit communication is that they will influence the 3D somehow. Like, we don't have a one to one, we can't make a handshake. We don't have a one to one connection because, we're here and they're here. We're on different vibrational planes, but they can influence our reality, our physical reality. They do that by using nature. They do that by influencing our energy. They do it by things like repeating numbers, right? So when you see a repeating number or you see, like 1111, we know that that means something. And it's not that spirit manipulates the numbers. It's that spirit or your angels or whoever's communicating gives you a nudge when it's 11:11 that you look up at that precise moment and look at the clock or whatever. You're driving down the road and you glance over at a license plate and it says 111, whatever. So spirit can affect you in those kind of ways. They're not going to, say in your ear, hey, look at that number 111. That means blah. They say, you get an elbow, like, hey, check that out. Look at that. That's how they communicate. Okay? Because they know that those numbers mean something to you and they know if they can get you to see it, then you'll go figure out what that means. Or you'll try to figure out what that means. It can be difficult to figure out what the message is because we don't have that one-to-one communication. But at least knowing you're getting communication in the first place is a step in the right direction. And then you get to open up into figuring out what the message is. Okay? So here's another example. I'm going to tell you a story about Marianne that we talked about earlier today. She gave me permission to share this story. But last year, right around this time, she was walking in the woods and she fell on a tree branch and the part of it that was sticking up cut her leg pretty badly. So she had a really big cut. She needed a tourniquet. She had to have lots of stitches. I don't know if you remember that. I think she shared that in our group. And after that, she hasn't gone out in the woods very much because she is afraid of falling and getting hurt, which is totally understandable. Well, today she messaged me that her dog, Buddy, she took her dog, Buddy, outside to do his business, and then she turned around to come back into the house like she always does, but he wasn't behind her. And by the time she saw that he was gone, he was through the woods, and, she had to find him. And she told me that he has never done this before. And when she was telling me the story about what he did and what happened and what she had to do, she had to go into the woods and all the way through to get him. She brought up the accident from almost a year ago. So this was part of her story that she's telling me, and that sent my antenna up, and I was like, that's interesting. So why did Buddy actually run off today if he's never done that before? So we were talking about that. And I wondered if that was really a message for Marianne. So and what I was saying was that, she may have healed the wound on her leg, but she still has an inner wound about that. So some fear about going into the woods and having another accident, right? So think of the energy of those words, having an accident. That doesn't feel good in my body. And how does it feel in yours? Like if you think about having an accident, it doesn't feel good. It brings up like a constriction, like a fear. Like you don't want to have an accident. Accidents are bad, right? So when you have that thought and you have that, even if it's not a conscious thought, but it's somewhere in the background, like she's been living with that in her body, that kind of built-in undercurrent of fear of going in the woods for fear of having an accident. And this is what humans do. So this is not judgment on Marianne by any means. This is what we do. This is how humans work. So the more we understand how we work, the better we can work ourselves, right? We do it all the time without even realizing it. So my question was, I was wondering if, Spirit sent Buddy running off into the woods so that Marianne would fearlessly have to go in and get him. She had to go in and all the way through the woods, and she really had no choice for herself. She was like, I have to do it. There's no question about this. I've got to do it. So she said, well, what are they telling me with this? And I said, well, maybe that it's time to heal the inner wound that the accident caused. Maybe they're saying your mourning time is over. And she said, I think so. So, you know, that's something that she gets to decide if that's her message or not, or if it's even a message for her. But that we had that conversation, and I thought this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about in this lesson tonight. Because communication, she got this communication from spirit in this really weird experience that happened today that never happened before, that was connected to an event that seemingly had nothing to do with what happened today. So the accident and then Buddy running off today, those things are completely unrelated, but are they if you put the pieces together? Right? That's how you get messages. They can be completely connected. And when we hit that message, right? When we hit on the message, she was like, oh, I think that's what it is. So you get a resonance with that, with what the message is, when you can tune into it. So we have to stop looking for the obvious and start looking in the dark. We have to start feeling our way through the dark for where's the communication coming in. If you're only looking for visions or to hear someone speaking to you, then you're missing out on all the beautiful ways, the beautiful communication that you're getting thousands of times a day in all different ways. So, what does this have to do with emptiness? So if you think of yourself as an electrical cord with currents of electricity flowing through you, right? You're a cord, there's a plug in one end, and there's an appliance on the other end. If the switch is off, or if the plug is unplugged, let's just say if the switch is off, that creates a blockage. So the electricity can't get through, and the thing that needs the juice can't work. Okay? In order for that thing, the appliance, to get electricity, the switch has to be on so that the juice, the electricity, has a path to go all the way through, has a clear path to go all the way through. And it's the same thing for you to get messages from spirit, from your spirit guides, from your ancestors, from your higher self, from your cards, because you're not really talking to your cards, you're talking to the spirits in your cards. You need an open and clear channel for the communication to come through and for you to be able to recognize when it does come through. Because if your channel isn't clear, meaning if your channel is too narrow because you have limiting beliefs that narrows your channel, or if your channel is clogged with wounds or with clutter or with expectations, like it can only happen this way and you're missing out on all this over here, or comparisonitis, well, it works this way for this person, so that's how it should work for me, right? Or if your channel is flimsy because you operate from the shadow archetypes that we've talked about before, then you either spend your time being distracted and looking somewhere where there's not communication for you, or you set expectations that aren't accurate for you, or you only look for the obvious and you end up missing what's really happening. You miss the animal messengers that are communicating, or you miss the signs and the symbols that have meaning, or you miss out on most of Spirit's communication with you. So, I want you to clear yourself of all expectation about how Spirit should communicate. Because if that's not helping you, if you feel like you don't have good communication or you don't have any communication, then clear out the expectations. Like you're just looking in the wrong place because Spirit's communicating. You're getting it. Clear yourself of what everybody else says about how it should work or how it works for them. Because it's about you. It's about how it works for you. You are unique like a snowflake, and it's going to work for you differently than it works for other people. I'm kind of only glancing at the comments, but like for me, my intuition signals me in my solar plexus. I think Mary said her hands tingle. Yeah, before she hears somebody from her past, right? So it's different for everybody. And work on clearing the blockages out of your channel. Like this is some of the most important work that you can do. Heal your limiting beliefs, heal your wounds, heal your clutter, heal the comparison. Because being a unique snowflake means there's nobody really that you can compare yourself to. You just can't, because there's nobody else that are like you. Carrie says her ear's popping. And hopes is a smell. Yeah. Perfect. Yes. Yeah, it's different. You got to know what it is for you. But there's more than just one way, right? Like that's your intuition communicating with you, that there's some kind of communication coming in for this one thing, but there's more. So open yourself up to like all the possibilities, because it gets really juicy when you open yourself up to the possibilities. Yeah, for sure. And then you can learn about all the different ways that you can receive communication and figure out how it comes in, so that when you get a message, you go, I know exactly what's happening. I know why that weird event happened, exactly why that weird event happened. That reminds me, um, there was a time when I was going to bed, I was working with spirit animals, and I said, show me in my dreams my spirit animal that's working with me right now. And I am terrified of snakes, I'll just say that. And so in my dreams, I started to see a rattlesnake. And even being sound asleep, I was like, oh no, shut that down. We're not going there. No rattlesnakes. And so it was just, I just remember waking up like in this like, and for a split second, I had started to see a rattlesnake. It went away. 2 or 3 nights later, this was also in that house in Tennessee that was very active with spirit activity. Steve and I were on the couch watching TV. It was at night. The dogs were outside. We had a fenced yard, and they were barking their heads off. And we lived out in the woods, and so, there were animals around us all the time. But I just felt like I needed to go out and look. And so I go out and look. I don't see anything, but I hear this buzzing like there's a power line that's been cut. And I'm like, well, that's not good. And there's a tree in our backyard that's in front of the fence. And so I start walking out to where the dogs are, like around this tree. And as I get far enough, there is a rattlesnake that's wound into the chain link of the fence. A real live rattlesnake. So I had asked for communication. I got it and shut it down, and it came in a different way, in a way that I could not ignore. So that's another thing that happens, is if you're asking for communication, then you really want to recognize when it comes in, because otherwise you could get it in a way that you don't really want it. Nothing bad happened except for the rattlesnake. Poor guy. But it was clearly like I was like, oh, I asked for this, and then I didn't let it come, and so it's coming, whether I want it to or not. So crazy, weird story. But anyway, when you feel like you get a message, so there's all this stuff too that goes back and forth about, is everything a message? Am I making too much of stuff a message? Who cares? Don't worry about what other people think about that. If you think something is a message, then let it be a message. Like, what's wrong with that? That's something else for you to explore and see what it means for you, right? Trust that you're getting messages. Trust that you can figure out what they are. Like, the first thing is receiving them, and then figuring out what the message is. That can take some practice, but we'll deal with that another day. Okay? But trust that it's coming in, because you're getting the communication. Okay? Okay. That's the lesson.